And we are back with our first conversation for this morning. It's all about resilient reefs strategy development.
Ooh.
And we have the folks in to tell us all about it. Joining us in studio, we have Amy Armstrong, who is the director of the Resilient Reefs Initiative of the Great Barrier Reef, and Kalene, who is the Resilient Reef Officer at the Coastal Zone Management Authority and Institute. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, so we've been listening, well, actually been hearing this conversation about Resilient Reefs initiatives for quite some time now. But what is so important about this event that's taking place today?
Yeah. The Resilient Reefs Initiative launched back in May 2021 here in Belize. We're one of 4 pilot sites that are operating globally to develop a groundbreaking pilot or strategy for reef resilience. Naturally, it's a very momentous occasion. It's something unique of its own. Belize is no stranger to any strategies. We have so many, but what makes this one more unique and groundbreaking is, we're partnering and with so many global partners and local on-the-ground initiative to build upon excellent work that's already happening. Today we launched the strategy at Biltmore, and we're hoping that it continues to build that hope, and we have a smooth launch.
But what is the strategy about this time? What is happening today?
Yeah, so the strategy is based upon directly responding to resilience challenges that we've identified through this development process. So again, one of its unique features is we're only releasing 3 flagship actions, very major, and every output that comes out of this feeds into national interests, priorities. For example, our Belize Sustainable Ocean Plan, the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan, upcoming carbon sequestration initiatives, the RED Plus. We're working alongside coastal communities to develop and supplemental livelihood opportunities, continuing great work from projects that have come and had some really, good success, but we really want to build upon that and make it more, better for
So what exactly are we talking about when we speak to reef resilience, and why should the average Belizean, particularly those in mainland Belmopan, inland Belmopan, for example, we only know
River.
River, and Tencent Creek the Belmopan, and there isn't much to do about reef. We would think. So what do we talk about when we talk about resilient reefs, and why should the inland residents care?
Sure. Coral reefs globally are incredibly important, both for economy, for biodiversity. A million people globally rely on reefs for food, jobs, storm protection. They house a quarter of all the biodiversity, all the fish and animals in the sea, even though they make up less than 1% of the sea floor. So they really punch above their weight in terms of importance. Wow. In Belize, half of the population, their income relies on the barrier reef here in some capacity. So for tourism, for the fish industry, et cetera. So I think, I don't know that you all, maybe even, you kind of take for granted the fact that you're sitting next to the second largest barrier reef in the world.
Right.
It is hugely important globally, and you all are leaders in conservation. And so, I'm here as a global partner to provide some resources and support, but I think everyone has to care about the reef. It's a central part of the culture, the economy, and it's crucial globally for the environment.
I really like that you said that we take it for granted, because we absolutely do. And so when we're talking about the strategy plan, how does tying in that factor set in with not just the coastal communities, right? Because like Paul said, we live inland, why are I supposed to care about the barrier? So does the strategy entail education campaigns and so forth?
Absolutely. So just to walk back and answer a bit more about Paul's question. So the definition used by the Initiative for Reef Resilience, it's more holistic than just an ecosystem approach. So it also seeks to, it's the capacity to survive, adapt, and overcome from shocks and stressors. And it includes communities as well. And we're also looking into governance structures. So it's not only just looking at ecosystem. It is a component, a very important one, but it takes a more holistic approach. And again, for someone inland, I like to reiterate, whatever we do on land eventually gets into the sea. So one component we considered very heavily and we're looking to develop for future work is a watershed action. So these 3 actions are starting. However, this is not the end. We will definitely continue to work with people to develop more action on the ground. In terms of each action and community involvement, the first one we could briefly summarize all 3. The first one, it's directly involved with the reef, and it involves tour guide training for disease treatment. So a lot of people, stony coral tissue loss disease is one of the main resilience challenges that affect the reef right now. We went snorkeling on Tuesday, and the disease extent is it's pretty crazy. So what we're hearing from the communities is we want to be there to treat, but we need the training, we need capacity building. And so one of the actions directly seeks to explore that option. And hopefully once that pilot is up and running and we're seeing, if it's a bit successful, we could scale up and go nationally. Secondly, we're working with the World Wildlife Fund and the Lands and Surveys Department to develop a coastal and marine land tenure assessment. Essentially, to develop a base of stakeholders, or to identify a base of stakeholders, for upcoming work, for, carbon sequestration potential, mangrove restoration, for example, and just to get an idea of how best can we protect our coastline and involve the private owned lands. Finally, we're working with WCS on livelihood, supplementary livelihood options. This is not new work. A lot of this has happened before. We've worked heavily with fishing communities, fisher folk, in exploring livelihood options. However, a lot of barriers are getting encountered from, for example, product development to marketing to actually getting it sold on national and international scales. So we will be continuing that type of work, identifying barriers to, supplemental livelihoods and how best can we support.
How do we talk to more communities, and most communities that live on the coastline are relatively on the lower end of the poverty scale. So how do we engage these communities that you're able to make a living with the coast in a sustainable manner? It's not going to hamper you in any kind of way, and also ensure that they're able to make a profit off of it. How do you balance that?
Yeah, that is the entire, of that specific action. And we're still exploring what that answer might be.
Yeah.
Where at this point, it's just identifying these barriers, getting on the ground ideas, actually working with communities and continuing on that type of work.
Yeah. As a director, and you've worked in other communities and other capacities, how do you see this strategy rolling out for Belize compared to other places?
One of the things we heard from the Belize stakeholders very early on was that they didn't want another shiny document. Like Kalene indicated, there's been a lot of outside funding to create strategies that are really important and give us important data, but often sit on a shelf. So we heard that, and we have approached this effort with what are some gaps that we can fill and money we can get on the ground quickly. So the 3 actions that Kalene's mentioned: working on coral restoration, Intern-F, working with coastal communities in Glover's Key and saltwater around ways to ensure that they have multiple options for not giving up fishing, but that we can create more economic opportunity overall. and then working to better understand coastal development trends and threats and opportunities for mangrove restoration and protection. So we've over, I think, I need to convert to Belize dollars from Australian dollars, but about $1.5 million being announced today to fund those 3 actions. So I think that's one of the differences. A lot of the themes are similar. The need for thinking about long-term restoration given climate change, the need to make sure that communities are safe and less vulnerable to climate change and less vulnerable to lower fish catches.
One of the things that I wanted to also touch on, because we're talking about these communities and what they're doing and how they connect with the coast, right? But a lot of these communities, particularly in Belize, also have to battle and compete with large corporations that invest in tourism.
Sure.
So does this strategy also play a role in engaging them and seeing how they're able to assist the communities instead of just taking away from their coastal livelihood?
Yeah, so, again, as we dove into this resilience assessment, it was one of the biggest resilience challenges identified across the community was coastal development. And not essentially all development is bad.
Yeah.
It's the effects of that mangrove clearing, marine dredging, the lack of public infrastructure to support private development. And so it was very clear from the get-go that communities voiced this. It's a very popular concern. It's a long-standing issue. And so with Action 2, that's essentially the point. We're seeking to identify this stakeholder base of private-owned property to explore these options, working with communities, reforestation efforts, and potentially feeding into long-term planning and building that type of support between community and private-owned lands. Yeah.
Just an observation. I mean, I think, again, I have the privilege of working with many countries around the world, and Belize, just by creating a ministry for blue economy, by saying we care about our people and our natural resources, and we're going to be thoughtful about that, is unique. There are not a lot of ministries for blue economy globally. So, I think there's a lot of really amazing leaders here who are thinking about those connections, and it's going to take time, but their heart and mind is in the right place.
Yeah. How do we go about having these discussions with these communities that we're making mention of as partners, so that you're viewed in that light and not in a negative light in terms of, oh, you guys are just coming here to stop our livelihoods, just to implement more rules. We already have a lot of rules. We already have a lot of policies, a lot of initiatives. And do you gather that Belizeans living in the coast and have a sense of the responsibility that is upon them to also be contributors of the sustainability of our reefs?
I mean, I wouldn't try and presume to know what Belizeans think. I'm a visitor and a humble one. But I do think that in all of the engagement that our partners have done on ground, they've been really honest and transparent in that they're trying to get the true desires of local communities, and they understand that fishers want to stay fishers, but they also know that they need other options at the household level to make sure that they're going to be okay for the long term. So I don't know if that fully answered your question.
I mean, I could add 100%. We're not starting from scratch. So when we go into these communities, when we did our engagement sessions, they already knew the effects of climate change. They knew the decline of coral reef ecosystems. Every community that we've went to had critiques or feedback for MPA management of their MPAs that they visit regularly. So again, we're not the first initiative to be coming and having this discussion with them. They're very knowledgeable about these changes. They know the effects of climate change, and they've heard of supplemental livelihoods, fishing. And so coming to them with this conversation, we have to do it carefully, very mindful that, they're knowledgeable. This isn't a brand new conversation we've been having with them. And it's being open-minded and coming with, ideas to the table, taking their ideas into account. We're not coming to them
with ideas.
with ideas.
Yeah.
This is something that has, spawned from ground up.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, we're not, coming top down and saying, these are new rules.
Yeah.
In fact, nothing within our strategy proposes new rules.
Yeah.
It's essentially just working with communities to, become build in resilience-based management.
So you're launching this today. What is the time span of the initiative, and what can we talk about? What the results are you expecting from it?
Yeah. So the time span for the strategy is 1.5 to 2 years, so a very short turnaround period. Unlike some strategies that go for 5 to 10 years. We're expecting some very tangible outputs. So for example, from the Marine and Land Tenure Assessment, we're working directly with the Lands and Surveys Department to help digitize, to really find out what's happening along the coastline, and to have these, layers updated, case studies to assist in other planning priorities. So for example, I brought up the Belize Sustainable Ocean Plan, the Integrated Coastal Zone Management Plan. It's an essential puzzle piece that feeds into several other planning efforts. For example, the ecosystem, working with UBERI and TASA for disease treatment and coral restoration options, where it's a trial process, and so not only we're going to get direct disease treatment, but we're also looking into supporting the National Coral Reef Monitoring Network in developing a national restoration policy in the long term. So whatever outputs that we come from this action helps to feed into future work.
So how bad is the coral bleaching right now along our barrier reef?
So as of this year, it's annual bleach events, some more than others. However, right now, again, it's the disease that is, at the top of everyone's priority list, getting access to that treatment option.
What does the disease do to the corals?
Essentially, it's a bacterial, we're still doing research. Very little is known about connection to mainland activities or the cause of this type of disease. However, we know it's bacterial. There's antibiotic treatment that seems to be having some kind of effective treatment. However, it's just sheer manpower that's needed to be out there on the reef and directly administer that type of treatment.
Is it stopping growth?
Yes, it directly kills the coral over time. So if it's not applied, it just slowly shrinks over time, and that's it, no more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So in terms of the land tenure initiative that we're talking about, and I know you made mention of it briefly, gave a bit of description, but in terms of identifying who owns these lands and these private partners, how are we hoping that they can partner in this initiative? What are we asking of them? Or are we simply just identifying them for the sake of knowing, for the sake of having that knowledge?
So yes, it's having that knowledge. I mean, knowledge is power.
It is.
No, again, it's an essential puzzle piece into several initiatives. And when I say that, I don't want to talk for any other department or any other national interest, but a lot of carbon sequestration efforts are ongoing. So WWF has done extensive research into the potential for carbon sequestration, which leads to the development of a carbon framework, which may lead to for potentially a credit system.
Yeah.
But that's way down the line, if any. And like I said, I don't want to. I don't want to. But it, again, essential puzzle piece for other planning initiatives, and Yeah.
And I think, I mean, as part of, once you have a better sense of who owns the land, there will be some outreach to landowners to figure out what would be the incentives that would be necessary to encourage you to protect or restore your mangroves, and some education around the role that mangrove health plays in coral reef health and coastal protection. So I think there certainly will be that next phase of work as well.
Is there any conversations or plans to collaborate with other ministries, particularly Ministry of Education and so forth, to talk to the kids and talk to high schools? Because I mean, we're talking about coral restoration,
Yes.
but how do you put that into the terms that my little 8-year-old child will understand?
That's a good question. Yeah. So through the strategy development process, we directly partnered with the University of Belize, the natural resource management class, to look at and really unpack the resilience challenge of coastal development. And so we brought in the graduate school at Columbia University, and we literally sat down, or not sat down, well, it was online over Zoom. But we looked at some very target areas along the coastline that have heavy populations, and just say, what are the resilience challenges? And it was quite an involvement between 2 universities. So I can say, at the university level, yes, we have worked, in partnership with our local university. However, in terms of, smaller or younger audiences, there is communication. However, it's not necessarily, direct. It's more of an indirect thing. I mean, my advice, we do have upcoming communication strategies, and we're looking at a household approach for livelihoods, but for most of it's directly for people 18 and above.
Right, because it's all of us, right?
Yeah.
Like if they don't start from small
That's
caring
true.
about the reef, then we're just gonna create more problems. But okay, one more time for my audience. Launches today. At 10 a.m.
10 a.m.
At
9
9:30.
9:30.
Belize time.
9:30. Belize time 10.
So 9:30 a.m. at the Toucan Hall at the Biltmore
Yes, ma'am.
Plaza. And it is going to be just an official launching ceremony, yes?
Yes, and followed by an information session. So we'll be hearing directly from our partners to their respective actions. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, ladies. Is there any final words for our viewers this morning?
I don't know. You want to go first?
I just a lot of gratitude for the partnership that we've experienced here, and again, just recognizing what an amazing treasure you have on your doorstep, and the leadership that you all play globally in protecting it, and innovating new finance and community ways of engaging and ensuring long-term health. So congratulations, and thanks for having us.
Yeah. Well, to viewers at home, I would say, and I guess local marine managers, after talking community engagement and talking with everyone, it's very easy to lose hope in something like this. It's not an individual effort. It takes a community, it takes a nation, and international partnership to really bring together some of these actions and to actually respond effectively to shocks and stressors here in Belize. So my lasting message is, don't lose hope. Get involved, go to your local NGOs within your communities. A lot of excellent grassroots initiatives are happening on small scale, even if it's a beach cleanup, if it's a river cleanup, just get involved, reduce, reuse, recycle, and keep your eyes, ears open, and if you see any type of wrongful environmental impacts happening, report it, and just continue doing that type of great work.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The Resilient Reefs Initiative Strategy Development will be launching this morning, 9:30 at the Biltmore. And from transitioning from one climate resiliency to another, we'll be joined after the break with our friends from TASA. Stay with us. We'll be right back.